I'm Chaz Klimchak, and I hereby declare May National Horror Movie Education Month. The Slasher. Psycho was the first commercial venture by a major studio to pit a man with a knife in a contemporary setting against a woman in peril. This began the first great cycle of slashers during the postmodern horror period. The genre got off to a slow start, but by the 70s it began to pick up steam, no small thanks to the success of the Italian subgenre, the giallo. In 1974, Bob Clark's Black Christmas gave the genre a shot in the arm both commercially and artistically with his acclaimed thriller that cemented the idea of a singular knife-wielding killer on a one-night spree. In 1978, John Carpenter perfected the formula with his seminal film Halloween, and filmmakers with meager budgets took note. Halloween did more than scare audiences. It made a few unknown filmmakers the talk of Hollywood. By 1984, box office earnings for independent horror films began to sputter, placing tonight's feature film in the horror lull between Halloween and the next great cycle of slashers that began with Wes Craven's Scream. Tonight on Klimchak's Killer Collection, we're going to take a look at the 1986 slasher, Slaughter High. Slaughter High is typical of slashers that landed late in the game. It follows established genre rules and reeks of the 80s, right down to the hair metal theme song. Slaughter High was so boorish at its attempt at being a slasher that it even picked a holiday that, unfortunately, Paramount Pictures had already secured the rights to. Can you imagine that? A major studio securing the rights to a holiday so it can market its slasher. Incredible.
Now, Loverboy's not frightened, is he?
Yo, Carol, this is the best birthday I've ever had.
April 1st is your birthday?
Oh yeah, they covered the birthday angle too. Like most later entries in the Pantheon, Slaughter High is a little more mean-spirited. And this is likely due to censorship issues that filmmakers from both the UK and America were dealing with. Slaughter High has a pacing issue. It's not the editor's fault. The problem is the prologue is much too long for a slasher of this length, and the setup isn't worth the punchline. This film could have easily been 78 minutes and better. Jump ahead 10 years later, and our group of bullies lead very different lives. And for you trivia hounds, here's some info and a challenge.
Who's a pretty boy then?
Who's a pretty what?
Who's a pretty boy?
Hey, I take it all back. You'll go far in this business.
If you look at the wall behind Carolyn Monroe's agent, you can clearly see the poster for another infamous slasher that came in the second great cycle of slashers, a film called Pieces. There are two other posters behind the agent, and I've never quite been able to make out what films they are for. If you know, inbox me, and maybe you'll win something.
Bitch.
As is typical in these films, our group of bullies unite 10 years later to a really annoying tune written by Harry Manfredini of Friday the 13th fame. Much to their dismay, they find their school has long been abandoned. But one way or another, this crazy gang finds a way in. Notice, at no point does anyone find this suspicious in any way. After midnight, the adult fun and games begin, but it doesn't last long because someone is out to sabotage this good time, and it is definitely not an April Fool's joke. And if you listen closely, you can hear Harry Manfredini ripping off his own score from Friday the 13th.
My picture. He's gonna get me next.
Things begin to play out exactly like you'd think, so this is a good time for some history on the film. Interestingly enough, almost all of the cast are British actors faking American accents. The irony here is that it was the Brits who literally began to ban or censor these types of films being made in America. Simon Scudamore, who played the role of Marty the Teased, was found dead a few weeks after the film's release with no accompanying note, apparently the victim of an overdose. And here's some cultural info. The significance of the clock at the end of the film is this. In England, April Fool's Day only lasts until noon, and if you play a prank after noon, you become the April Fool. I'm certain that the metaphor here is completely lost on the filmmakers, so thank God for horror fans. And we all know how this last encounter is going to turn out. Before I rate this film, let me explain how my rating system works. Slashers are rated on a scale of 1 to 5 slashes. Now, I like all of these films, so even a 1-star rating is still a decent rating. And if I say it's off the charts, then I'm talking about something that belongs up there with Halloween, Psycho, and Black Christmas. So, with that understanding, Slaughter High comes in at 1 solid star for being phoned in, but phoned in successfully at that. I'm Chaz Klimchak, and this is Klimchak's Killer Collection. Thanks for watching, folks.
Night, Mr. Wama.
Do 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 do.